Hello everybody, welcome to Nature at Home. My name is Joel, and today we're talking all about amphibians in New York State. Well, specifically frogs in New York State. Okay, so frogs all begin life as an egg. Frog eggs look like white jelly, clear jelly with little black specks in it. You can see it in ponds sometimes. All frogs that lay their eggs in a water source of some sort. Oh, that was an owl. So, eggs hatch out into tiny tadpoles. There's the eggs. They're small tadpoles. Tadpoles feed a lot on algae, debris. Some tadpoles eat other smaller tadpoles. And they quickly start growing into young frogs, where they grow back legs first, then their front legs. Eventually they lose their tail, they absorb it back into their body, and then become adult frogs. During this time, they have gills as a tadpole, and they lose their gills, and they get lungs as a frog. Good example of that. Good live example of that is this little fella. This looks to be looks like a young bullfrog. Possibly a young green frog, but you can see his little tail that he's absorbing. He's kind of still roundish featured from being a tadpole. You can see he had a tail, and he's absorbing his tail, and he's becoming a young frog now. At this age, he probably has lungs, he's lost his gills, and he'll start to feed on insects soon. There are at least 10 species of frog that I know about that live in St. Lawrence County. We will start with the official amphibian of New York State, the wood frog, which is one that, despite being our official amphibian, almost nobody knows we even exists. Okay, here's a wood frog. We have a couple pet ones at the Nature Center. They are kind of a nice rusty brown to dark chocolate brown. They blend in just on the forest floor. They look just like a dead leaf. They live in more mature forests where there's good leaf cover, so deciduous forests. And then they have these little dark black masks kind of on their face there. Their call sounds kind of like a chuckle, or like ducks quacking or turkeys quacking. One of the most unique traits is that they can freeze solid. Their blood has a sugar-like compound in it, and it works like antifreeze. They can freeze solid and then thaw right out and come back to life, no problem. So they live in very northern climates. You only hear them calling usually middle of April around here, only for a week or two. They're a lot quieter than other frogs, and there'll be hundreds of them in the small ponds in the woods, and then they'll vanish into the leaf litter and you'll barely see them. They specialize in using what are called vernal pools. So a vernal pool is a small temporary pool that dries up every summer. You've probably seen them. They're wet in the spring, sometimes the fall, but they're totally dry in the summer. They lay their eggs in those as soon as there's half the ice is gone on them and the water's still very cold. That way, their babies can start developing and grow into froglets before the pool dries out. It also helps having their glycol-like blood, their antifreeze-like blood. They are one of the first frogs to wake up, so they wake up much before a lot of the other frogs and get an early start on things, lay their eggs quick, so their babies can develop quick. The advantage of laying eggs in those small vernal pools instead of bigger ponds is there are no fish in vernal pools, so the babies can grow up with a lot less predators around them. If fish got into vernal pools somehow, when it dries up in the summer, all the fish would die. That's a wood frog. Okay. And wood frogs eat a lot of different insects, and they usually live about 5 years max. Next frog in here is another cool one that lives around here. Is a gray tree frog. I'm gonna try to keep this guy from jumping. Oh, he wants to jump. They're very good jumpers. They can change color, a lot like a chameleon can change color. It can be green, gray, white. I've seen them almost black. They have a yellow color under the legs. Okay. Oh, and if you look at his fingers, he's got little sticky pads, and his hands are like little suction cups, right? So he can climb walls like Spider-Man. You hear these a lot in the summer around here. That trilling noise you hear at night that sounds a lot like birds. That's actually gray tree frogs. So they're fairly common. They lay their tadpoles in small ponds. And I'm not too sure on their lifespan. I would guess 10 to 15 years, but I don't know off the top of my head. Okay. I'm now going to show you 3 more frogs that are very often confused for one another. I'll try to show out the slight differences between them. This first guy here is really squirmy, is a green frog. Okay. These often get confused with leopard frogs and bullfrogs. They are probably the most common frog around here. They live in ponds. So that's where you're going to find them most of the time. Bigger, small and large ponds. So as you see, they're mostly a green color. Sometimes their body can be mostly brown, and the green is just confined to their head. Okay, and they do have some spots and speckles kind of around their body as well, as you can see. This guy's a little on the greener end. Most of them are a little browner than this, but it's not that untypical to find one that looks like this. Okay, now I'm going to compare him to a bullfrog. Attempt to here. Okay. Now here's a bullfrog in my right hand, and this is a green frog on my left. You can see the bullfrog is more of a yellowy green color versus like a true green. The male bullfrog has a nice bright yellow throat versus the green frog has a whitish throat. The bullfrog will eventually get much larger, right? This is definitely not a full-grown bullfrog. A full-grown bullfrog is about as big as a softball. The best way to tell is the eardrum, or the tympanic membrane. You see the eardrum structure right behind the eyeballs. The green frog eardrum is about the size of its eyeball. The bullfrog eardrum is about twice the size of its eyeball, right? So they have a much larger eardrum. The females have a little slightly smaller eardrum than that, but still bigger than the green frog. And that's the way to tell them apart. The bullfrog is definitely our largest frog. I believe it's the largest in North America. And its large size enables it to eat other frogs. They are cannibalistic and they like to eat smaller frogs. Now, green frogs have to spend 2 years as a tadpole before they can develop. So their tadpoles are alive under the ice in the ponds. Bullfrogs will sometimes spend 3 years as a tadpole before even becoming a frog. Those tadpoles have to be in a big pond. Usually bullfrogs will be in the same habitat as the green frog, but they'll also be in larger rivers too. Your tadpoles have to have a big enough pond to survive several winters. The colder the climate, the longer it takes. And you get a larger individual at the end of it. I would say, so like this frog right here in my hand, he is probably, I would say 4 to 5 years old right now. If you see one of the really big bullfrogs, you're probably looking at like an 8-year-old individual, maybe older. Okay, so this guy here is called a leopard frog. Or leopard frogs. Quiet, Mr. Owl. Okay. You can see he has very nice spots. This one's kind of more of a grayish beige color. It's got some green accents. They can get really nice emerald green in color sometimes. They don't change colors per se, but it's just some individuals are nice green and some are more this beige color. So they come in different color varieties. They can get larger than this. They get about the size of that green frog I showed you. And the leopard frog likes to live more in wet fields and meadows. So usually areas not far from water or areas that get a lot of moisture or dampness, but they're usually actually on land versus the green frog and the bullfrog are in the water in ponds. These guys are more often in fields and meadows on land. You'll see, if you see them in your lawn, that's pretty common. But they again have to lay their egg, have to go to ponds to lay their eggs and tadpoles. Okay, so the other 5 species of frog that we didn't see today are the American toad, which most people are pretty familiar with, spring peeper, our smallest frogs, the chorus frog, another tiny frog, the pickerel frog, which looks a lot like a leopard frog, but its spots are all kind of squares and set up almost like in a grid pattern. And then the mink frog, which looks kind of like a green frogish, different, more modelly pattern, very different call. Right? Those are native to St. Lawrence County. I don't believe there's any other frogs that live in this county that I haven't mentioned. There are at least 3 others that live in New York, or 4 others that live in New York State. There's a green tree frog, there is a cricket frog, there is a spadefoot toad, and a Fowler's toad that also are in New York State, but not in this county. Okay, now frogs are very environmentally sensitive to pollution. They absorb things through their skin. Handling frogs a lot is actually quite harmful for them. We don't ever handle ours except for something special like this video. I make sure I wet my hands in pond water before I touch them. Having wet hands helps reduce how much of their slime you wipe off. You want to make sure you don't have any hand sanitizer, lotion, any salts, any kind of chemicals like that on your hands can actually hurt the frog when you're holding it because they get absorbed into its skin. I will say it's illegal to keep a frog as a pet, technically in New York State. You have to have a license to keep ours. They don't make very good pets. They pretty much sit in the exact same spot for about a week, and then they'll just eat on occasion. Anytime a bug walks by in front of their face. They are an important part of our ecosystem. They keep insect populations down under control. They eat a lot of bugs. At the same time, they are food for much larger animals like mink, owls, otters, turtles, all these herons, kingfishers, all these things eat frogs. So they are a key part of that food chain as well. Thank you everybody for watching, and thank you to the New York Power Authority for funding the Nicandre Nature Center and the programs we do here. See you all next time.